There's a 500-year-old craft in Japan for repairing broken pottery. The potters don't hide the cracks. They mix gold dust into the lacquer and trace every fracture in shining metal, so the bowl doesn't just get fixed, it becomes more valuable broken than it ever was whole. It's called kintsugi, and most people treat it as a nice metaphor for resilience. But almost none of what actually rebuilds a shattered life, a failed business, or a broken season of someone's mental health works the way the metaphor implies. There's no gold lacquer for a human being. There's a set of specific, learnable mechanics, and most people never learn a single one of them until the exact moment they're forced to. That's what this list is actually about. Not how to avoid the crack, but what to actually do the moment after it happens. I ranked these 10 books by how much they actually change what you do the day after everything falls apart, not by how many copies they sold. And for each one, I'm going to break down the actual ideas inside. Not just the title and a one-line summary. And the number 1 pick isn't a resilience book at all. Number 10. The Resilience Factor by Karen Rivich and Andrew Schatt. Rivich and Schatt's core argument, built from their work at the University of Pennsylvania developing the Penn Resiliency Program, is that resilience isn't a personality trait some people are simply born with, it's a set of measurable cognitive skills, mainly the ability to catch and interrogate the automatic thoughts that fire the instant something goes wrong. Their key concept is the ABC model. Adversity, the actual event. Beliefs, the largely invisible interpretation that fires in the half-second right after it. Consequences, the emotion and behavior that follow. And Rivich and Schatt argue it's almost never the adversity itself that determines how someone reacts, it's the unexamined belief slipped in between the event and the response that nobody notices happening. A concrete example they give. Someone gets a curt, one-line email reply from their boss and by the end of the day has quietly decided they're about to be fired. And tracing it back through the ABC model, the actual adversity, a short email, never justified the consequence, a full afternoon of dread, without an invisible belief, is furious with me, slipping in unquestioned between them, and once a person is trained to catch that belief in the moment, the same short email stops being able to hijack the rest of the day. Link to grab this one is in the description, timestamped below. Number 9. Mindset by Carol Dweck. Dweck's core argument, built from decades of research in developmental psychology on why some students and athletes recover from failure while others collapse under it, is that the belief someone holds about whether ability is fixed or capable of growing shapes how they respond to a setback far more than the setback itself does. Her key concept is the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. A fixed mindset treats failure as a verdict on identity, proof that I'm just not talented. A growth mindset treats the same failure as information, evidence that I haven't gotten there yet. And Dweck argues even the way a child is praised quietly plants one mindset or the other. Praising intelligence produces a more fragile, fixed mindset than praising effort and strategy ever does. A concrete example she gives. Dweck gives children a set of puzzles, praising one group for being smart and another for trying hard, then offers everyone a much harder follow-up puzzle. And the kids praised for being smart avoid the harder puzzle, afraid of losing the smart label, while the effort-praised kids choose it and persist longer, and after a deliberately failed puzzle, the smart-praised kids' performance drops even on easy problems afterward, while the effort-praised kids' performance actually improves. What makes this book different from the resilience factor is that Rivich and Schatt are handing over a process for catching and challenging a single thought in the moment adversity strikes. While Dweck is describing the underlying belief system that quietly decides, often years before that moment ever arrives, whether the thought even gets challenged at all. Link is in the description. Number 8. Grit by Angela Duckworth. Duckworth's core argument, built from her research studying who actually survives West Point's brutal beast barracks, National Spelling Bee finalists, and rookie teachers who stay in the hardest schools, is that raw talent is a surprisingly poor predictor of long-term success, and the real predictor is grit, passion, and perseverance for long-term goals sustained over years, not just moments of intensity. Her key concept is the grit formula. Talent multiplied by effort produces skill. Skill multiplied by effort produces achievement. meaning effort counts twice, once to turn talent into skill and again to turn skill into an actual result. And Duckworth argues this is exactly why steady, unglamorous effort routinely outperforms raw natural gifts over any long enough timeline. A concrete example she gives. Duckworth tracks incoming West Point cadets through BEAST, the summer program with a high dropout rate, and finds the standard whole candidate score, combining SAT results, athletics, and leadership history, fails to predict who quits. But a short grit questionnaire handed out before BEAST even begins does predict it. Cadets who scored high on grit stuck it out regardless of their fitness scores or class rank. What makes this book different from Mindset is that Dweck's growth mindset concerns the belief about whether effort matters at all, while Duckworth's grit is what happens once someone already believes that, and still has to sustain the effort across years instead of a single hard moment. Links in the description. Number 7. Emotional Agility by Susan David. David's core argument, built from her work as a psychologist at Harvard Medical School studying how people relate to their own difficult emotions, is that resilience doesn't come from suppressing painful feelings or forcing positivity onto them. It comes from being able to hold an uncomfortable emotion loosely enough to still choose your actions instead of being run by it. Her key concept is being hooked versus unhooked. Hooked means a feeling like fear or shame instantly triggers an old, automatic response before any real choice happens. Unhooked means creating a small gap between feeling the emotion and acting on it, labeling it precisely, I am noticing I feel anxious, instead of I am anxious. And David argues that tiny grammatical distance is enough to turn an automatic reaction into an actual decision. A concrete example she gives. David studied cancer patients and found the ones who did best long-term weren't the ones who forced themselves to stay positive. Positivity forced onto real grief and fear backfired, while patients who let themselves name and sit with the fear, without being swallowed by it, made clearer treatment decisions and adjusted better afterward. What makes this book different from Grit is that Duckworth is focused on sustaining effort toward a goal across years, while David is focused on a single moment of painful emotion, whether a person gets hijacked by it or stays able to choose their next move regardless of the larger goal. Link is in the description. Number 6. Rising Strong by Brené Brown. Brown's core argument, built from over a decade of research interviewing people about vulnerability and shame, is that the people who recover best from failure aren't the ones who avoid falling, they're the ones who get relentlessly honest about the story they told themselves the moment they fell. Her key concept is the reckoning, the rumble, and the revolution. The reckoning is noticing the emotion and getting curious about it instead of pushing it away. The rumble is getting honest about the first, usually inaccurate story you told yourself to explain what happened. The revolution is writing a truer, braver story once the false one has actually been examined. And Brown argues most people skip straight to a story without ever rumbling with whether it's true. A concrete example she gives. Brown describes a woman convinced a stranger at the gym was smirking at her, judging her for being out of shape, spiraling into shame for the rest of the workout. Later learning the woman had actually been fighting back tears over a diagnosis and had never even noticed her, and Brown uses it to show the story a mind writes into a gap of missing information is almost always the harshest one available. What makes this book different from Emotional Agility is that David is teaching how to create distance from an emotion the instant it hits, while Brown is teaching what to do one step later, once the emotion has already produced a story, tracing that story back to check whether it's actually true. Links in the description. Number 5. Deep Survival by Lawrence Gonzalez. Gonzalez's core argument, built from investigating real survival cases, plane crashes, lost hikers, drowned rafters, and comparing who lived to who didn't, is that survival has almost nothing to do with physical strength or wilderness skill. It comes down to a specific psychological pattern separating people who adapt to a new, brutal reality from people who die still fighting to get back the world they had a few hours earlier. His key concept is bending the map. A lost person who refuses to accept that their compass contradicts the mental map already fixed in their head starts distorting their own perception of the terrain to make the data fit the story they already believe. And Gonzalez argues that single refusal to update, not the terrain itself, is what turns a survivable situation into a fatal one. A concrete example he gives. Hikers convinced they know the trail insist their compass must be broken rather than admit they're going the wrong way, walking miles further off course before finally turning around, by which point exposure and dehydration have already taken hold. And Gonzalez contrasts them with survivors who, the moment reality stops matching the map, immediately discard the map and start over, however disorienting that admission feels in the moment. What makes this book different from Rising Strong is that Brown is examining the false stories people tell themselves about a social or emotional setback, while Gonzalez is showing the exact same mechanism, refusing to update a mental model once reality contradicts it, playing out with life or death stakes in a physical survival situation. Link is in the description. Number 4. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Frankl's core argument, built from his own 3 years as a prisoner in Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz, and his subsequent work developing logotherapy, is that a person can endure almost any suffering if they can locate a reason, a meaning, that suffering serves, and that the will to find that meaning, not comfort or even the raw instinct to survive, is what actually determined who kept going. His key concept is the will to meaning. Frankl argued the primary human drive isn't pleasure, as Freud proposed, or power, as Adler argued, it's meaning. And even inside the camps, where every external freedom had been stripped away, prisoners retained what he called the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose their attitude toward any given set of circumstances. A concrete example he returns to. Frankl describes deciding, in the middle of a freezing labor march, to imagine himself years later lecturing students about the psychology of the concentration camp, turning his present suffering into future material instead of pure present pain. And he observed that prisoners who held on to some specific future purpose, a task to finish, a person to find again, survived outbreaks of typhus and starvation at noticeably higher rates than prisoners who had lost their sense of a future entirely. What makes this book different from Deep Survival is that Gonzalez is describing the tactical, moment-to-moment cognition of surviving a discrete physical crisis, while Frankl is describing what sustains a person through suffering that has no clear endpoint at all, where there's no map to update because no one can promise the ordeal ever ends. Links in the description. Number 3. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Goggins's core argument, built from his own transformation from an overweight exterminator into a Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and ultra-endurance athlete, is that most people stop at roughly 40% of their actual capacity, and the gap between that 40% and their real limit gets closed not by motivation, which is unreliable, but by a deliberately built callous mind, trained through repeated voluntary suffering. His key concept is the 40% rule and callousing the mind. When the body screams to quit, that signal is usually a lie the brain tells to protect itself from a threat that no longer actually exists. And repeatedly choosing to continue anyway, inside-controlled, voluntary hardship, builds a mental callus the same way a hand toughens against a rope over time. A concrete example he gives. Goggins signs up for a second attempt at Navy SEAL Hell Week with a stress fracture, still recovering from surgery, weeks after failing it the first time. And he gets through it not through raw fitness but by refusing to calculate the full remaining distance at once, breaking days of no sleep down into a single next step, the next meal, the next boat carry, nothing further than that. What makes this book different from Man's Search for Meaning is that Frankl locates resilience inside suffering that was forced on him with no choice involved, while Goggins describes something almost the opposite in method, though similar in spirit, deliberately manufacturing suffering by choice, as training, to build the same capacity before forced suffering ever arrives. Link is in the description. Number 2. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Holiday's core argument, built from ancient Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, translated into modern language, is that the very obstacle blocking a goal, examined correctly, is usually the path to a better outcome than the original goal would ever have produced. His key concept is perception, action, and will. Perception, seeing a situation objectively, stripped of the emotional story layered on top of it. Action, taking deliberate, correct steps regardless of how that perception makes you feel. Will, enduring what can't yet be changed, and finding what remains within your control even when almost nothing else is. And Holiday argues most people fail at the very first discipline, perception, long before action or will ever get the chance to matter. A concrete example he gives. Holiday tells the story of Rockefeller building Standard Oil during a series of financial panics that ruined most of his competitors. And while everyone else saw the crash as pure catastrophe, Rockefeller saw the panic selling as exactly the moment to buy struggling refineries and rail lines at a fraction of their worth, treating the same collapse his competitors were fleeing as raw material for the company's expansion. What makes this book different from Can't Hurt Me is that Goggins is building raw tolerance for pain through voluntary suffering, while Holiday is operating a layer above that, teaching how to perceive and reframe an obstacle correctly in the first place, so the pain being tolerated is actually being spent on the right target. Links in the description. And number 1. Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Unlike every other book on this list, this one isn't a book about resilience at all. It's a work of philosophy and risk theory, built from Taleb's years as an options trader watching rare, extreme events destroy people who had never accounted for them. Taleb's central claim is that resilience itself, the entire subject of every book above, is only the midpoint of a spectrum, not the finish line, and that most frameworks for bouncing back quietly stop at merely surviving a shock, when a system can be built to actually improve because of one instead. His key concept is anti-fragility. Not the same as robustness, which survives a shock unchanged. An anti-fragile system gains from disorder, volatility, and being wrong, the way cutting off one of the mythological Hydra's heads produces 2 more in its place, rather than simply breaking like a sword would. And Taleb argues certain small businesses, certain immune systems exposed to controlled stress, and evolution itself, operating through the disorder of random mutation, are all anti-fragile systems that treat shocks as raw material rather than pure damage. A concrete example he returns to. Taleb compares the restaurant industry as a whole to a single protected restaurant chain that never faces real failure. The industry, full of individual restaurants opening and constantly failing, is anti-fragile precisely because those small failures rapidly test and kill weak concepts while sharpening the ones that survive, while the protected chain, insulated from small disorder, never builds that immune response, and grows fragile in exactly the way one large shock can eventually prove. What makes this book the definitive number 1 on this list is that every other title here is teaching you how to survive, absorb, or bounce back from a specific hit. Taleb is arguing that surviving the hit was never actually the ceiling, structuring yourself so each hit makes you stronger is. Link is in the description. The number 1 pick proves something simple. A method can tell you how to catch yourself before you fall apart. Only an understanding of how to actually gain from the fall tells you whether you were ever building resilience at all, or just getting better at surviving the same hit over and over. Which of these have you read, and which one changed how you think about resilience? Drop it in the comments. This is Toon Review. Now go be rare. Go be a golden black llama. See you in the next video.